Welcome everyone to the heart and looking at the double circulatory system. Okay, so we've got some diagrams here, three different ones. So we're going to be looking at all of these separately and why they're important. If at any time you need to pause the video to write things down, that's absolutely fine, or answer questions. So first two questions for you to think about. What is included in the circulatory system? And why is it called a double circulatory system? So if you want to have a go at these, you can pause and we'll do the answers now. So what is included in the circulatory system? So we've got the heart. Hopefully you got that one. We've got the blood vessels, which are arteries, veins, capillaries. And then we've also got the lungs, because at some point we need to pick up some oxygen, because that's the whole point of our circulatory system. Not only pick up oxygen, but also get rid of carbon dioxide. Everyone forgets that bit. Good. So that's what we've got in the circulatory system. Why is it called a double circulatory system? Okay. Because it goes to, there's my pen, there it is. Goes to two places. One half goes to the lungs and one half goes to the body. And in a minute we'll have a look at deoxygenated on one side and oxygenated on the other. So hopefully you got those right. And if we look at this diagram, on the left hand side is all the deoxygenated blood in blue, and on the right hand side is all the oxygenated blood in red. So the two sides don't mix, and down the middle of the heart, which we'll see in a minute, there shouldn't be any gaps, so that means that the two types of blood there cannot mix. If they do mix, that can be a problem, and we'll look at that in a second. Right, so this is the outside of the heart, because the blood that goes through the heart isn't used by the heart. It's literally pumped, but it doesn't use any of it. The heart is a muscle, and so it gets its own blood supply from these on the outside, which is the coronary artery. Coronary artery. Now this artery supplies the heart with all the blood that it needs. It brings oxygen, it brings glucose, it takes away carbon dioxide. So that's where it gets its oxygen and its glucose for respiration, because this muscle, this heart, this is a cardiac muscle, and it beats about 70 to 80 times a minute for, well, 80 years. So it has to be incredibly efficient. Now we've got these other labels on here that are coming up, so I'm going to put these on so we can see. Okay. Right, now we said about a double circulatory system, so let's just double check. On the left hand side here, we've got all of our deoxygenated blood. There we go. And that goes to the lungs. And then on the right hand side, we've got all the oxygenated blood, which goes to the body. It's split. Some goes to the head and some goes to the body. It's going to drop off its oxygen, it's going to drop off its glucose, pick up the carbon dioxide, and then come back round to the other side of the heart to be pumped to the lungs to pick up more oxygen and get rid of that carbon dioxide. Everyone forgets the carbon dioxide in questions, so make sure that you do mention it if it's to do with blood and transport in the blood. Okay, So here is the picture of a heart that you generally get in exams, something like this. And it looks confusing, but actually if we keep the two halves separate and down this middle bit, are we here? So down the middle, where's my pen? There it is. So down this bit here, this is called the septum, okay? And that separates the two halves of our double circulatory system. If someone's born with a hole in the heart, that is where there's a hole. And a small hole is okay, but if you have a big hole in the heart, in this septum here, down the middle, it means that the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood can actually mix. So it makes it slightly less efficient. You'll get more out of breath and things like that. Some people are born with a tiny hole in the heart and then it fixes itself as you grow. Some people have to have them fixed. It just depends. Now, we've got the labels here. So remember, it's back to front as you're looking at your paper. So everything down this side is the right-hand side, and everything down over here is the left-hand side. So let's get our labels on. So the top chambers are the atrium, or atria is plural. So this is an atria, the right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Then we've got our valves here. And one of the favourite questions is, what do valves do? So if you're not sure, they stop the backflow of blood. They stop the blood flowing the wrong way, because that's really important. And that is our heart. Now, these two labels here, these extra valves here, are only for Edexcel. Okay, if you're AQA, it's just these two here. Now, something to note, have a look at the thickness of the muscle around the bottom. So it's thin on this side, but thick on this side. And that's because this side pumps all the way to the body, so it has further to go. Whereas this side only pumps to the lungs, which in reality are kind of behind the heart. So it doesn't have to pump very far. So this side doesn't need as much muscle, but this side does. Okay, oh, there's the label. Okay, so sometimes they ask about that. And one more thing I want to pop in, sometimes they ask about a pacemaker. Now, your heart runs on electrical signal, so there's an electrical signal every second or so which makes it pump. Some people have a problem with that, and the heart doesn't produce those electrical signals, or it overproduces them, and your heart's trying to pump and it's going boom, 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 boom. So we can fit something called a pacemaker, and it's a small metal disc that we put into the heart to send small electrical impulses at the right time so that the heart beats regularly. And sometimes they ask you, where you would put it in the heart. Okay, so if that is a question, we are going to put it into here. And get my pen in the right place. Where are we? Here. The right atrium, anywhere in here. They will ask you to circle where it would go or put a cross where it would go. It has to go in the right atrium because that's where the electrical signals are receptive, in the right atrium. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is look at the blood flow around the heart and make sure we all are okay with that. But before we do that, let's just double check the main components of our circulatory system. So we've got arteries, which carry blood away from the heart. We've got veins that carry blood towards the heart. And then we've got capillaries, and they are those tiny, tiny blood vessels, and they run past every single cell to drop off oxygen, drop off glucose, pick up carbon dioxide. And if we were to follow a red blood cell around the heart, when it gets pumped out of the heart, it's going to go into an artery. And then small arteries are called arterioles. Now this word comes up in higher. generally doesn't come up in foundation. Then we get pumped to capillaries, and then all those tiny capillaries come back together into small veins, if you like, called venules, and then back into the big veins, and then back to the heart again. All right, so be aware of which blood vessels go where. So arteries away from the heart, remember the A's. Veins go towards the heart, and veins go in the vena cava, if that helps. So, veins of the vena cava, that's coming back to the heart. All right, we're doing well. So let's just have a little look at our blood vessels. So there's 3 types we need to know the structure of: artery, veins and capillaries. And if you're feeling clever, you can pause the video and figure out which one of these is arteries, veins and capillaries. Okay, hopefully you've had a go. So let's have a look. So the arteries are under incredibly high pressure, which means that they have to have really thick walls. So this is an artery, so well done if you got that one, which makes this one a vein, and this tiny one with just single cells on the outside is a capillary. Okay, now don't make the mistake of saying an artery is bigger, because it's not. If you look, actually their diameter of arteries and veins are about the same. It's got thicker walls and a smaller lumen, so that's the hole that goes through the middle, the lumen. Okay, and a vein has a thinner wall, so it's not under such high pressure, so it doesn't need that really thick elastic wall. It's got a large lumen here, the hole in the middle where the blood goes through, and they have valves. So veins have valves, remember the V's. Okay, and that's our structure of an artery, vein and capillary. Now sometimes you might have to identify what they are, sometimes you might have to draw them, sometimes there's a long mark answer comparing the structure and the function. So there's all sorts of questions that can come up with these, but if you know these 4, 5, 6 or 7 facts about them, you should always be able to answer one of these questions. So let's move on to the next bit. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a go and see if you can get these right, fill them in. Right, let's have a go and see if we can do it together. So carry blood away from the heart. Arteries, return blood to the heart. Veins, have thicker walls, that would be arteries. Have a wider lumen, that would be veins. Blood spurts when cut due to higher pressure. Nice. That's an artery. So if you do cut an artery, the blood will go. And I've been told, although I've never seen it, that if you do cut an artery, it can hit the ceiling because it's under such high pressure that it gets pushed out. Blood moves more slowly due to lower pressure. You can still bleed out from a vein, especially a big one, like the ones in your legs, but it doesn't spurt. Have valves, so that'll be veins, because all the V's. Blood is bright red, so when it's oxygenated, it is brighter red. It's more of a scarlet colour, which means it'll be in the arteries. And blood contains less O2 in the veins. So congratulations if you got all those right. Let's see what we've got next. Right, let's have a look at the bloods. We might as well get all this into one video. So just the facts. One of those single drops of blood, 5 million red blood cells. So you can imagine how tiny they are. Okay, 5 to 10,000 white blood cells and 200,000 to 300,000 platelets. Now, these components all have very specific jobs to do. The red blood cells, the white blood cells and the platelets. And also there's the liquid that all these things are swimming around in. And the liquid is called, put it over here somewhere, plasma. And plasma is actually yellow. So if you take the red blood cells out of your blood, it would actually be yellow. So it's only the red blood cells making it red. Weird to think that, isn't it? So we've got a plasma, which is the liquid part of the blood. And then swimming in that plasma, we've got red blood cells, we've got white blood cells, and we've got platelets. So let's have a look. So roughly 55% of your blood is plasma, is that yellow liquid. And then the other 45% is made up of red blood cells, platelets, and white blood cells. Now, if you have a look at this diagram, sometimes they ask you about the sizes of these pieces in the blood. So the biggest one is here, a white blood cell, and if they show you a diagram or a picture of the components of blood, or even an electron micrograph where you can see the cells, the white blood cell is always the biggest one. The red blood cells are next, and hopefully you all know the shape of red blood cells. A biconcave disc, which means it's shaped a bit like a donut, but it hasn't got a hole all the way through. It's a dip. So if you looked at it from sideways, it would look something like this. Okay, so a biconcave disc. Right, let's have a little bit more information about these components. So, red blood cells. Pause the video and see if you can come up with facts about red blood cells. Right, let's make sure we know everything. So, red blood cells they have no nucleus. So, Mark, how many you got correct here? No nucleus. They have the shape of a biconcave disc. And that shape increases the surface area. Answer to every biology question. Increases surface area for carrying oxygen. They also have a protein in them called hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is the bit that carries or attaches to the oxygen. Okay, so there are our facts on red blood cells. Let's go on to white blood cells. So white blood cells, they're larger than red blood cells, larger than platelets. And you probably know what their function is, but pause the video, just jot a few things down. Okay, now we don't want any fighting off of diseases with this. Okay, they don't have fisticuffs. We're going to say white blood cells, where are we? White blood cells kill pathogens, or you could say they digest pathogens. They're very special, these. They make antibodies. They make antitoxins to stop us feeling ill. The way they kill pathogens. Now, if you know this word, phagocytosis, that is fabulous. You may know it as engulf pathogens. It's the same thing. Okay, so please don't say anything about the immune system or white blood cells fighting off. You won't get a mark. They kill pathogens, they destroy pathogens, they digest pathogens, but they don't have a little fight with boxing gloves. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So, platelets, we do get questions about platelets, but not a huge number. So, platelets are actually cell fragments. Okay, so they're bits of cell, hence they're the smallest. Okay, and what they do is if you cut yourself, they will all mesh together like this to make a scab. Oops, sorry. Mesh together to make a scab. And the purpose of a scab is twofold. It's not really nice talking about scabs, but one, so that the skin can be pulled back together to heal, but also to stop any pathogens getting in through the scab, okay? Because your skin is a barrier, and if your skin's a barrier and it's broken, things can get inside. So it's really important you have that clotting mechanism, okay? So platelets are involved in blood clotting. Right. Well done. Now, I'm just going to bring this one up because sometimes they pop this in at either in genetics or in kind of an out of context question, those harder questions. There is a condition called sickle cell anemia. Now, it is caused by a mutation, and it happens more in people of Afro-Caribbean descent just because it's more in their genetics. And what happens is the normal red blood cell here doesn't take on that biconcave shape. It actually is shaped like this, almost like a bit of the moon. But we call it sickle cell because there's a tool that you can use called a sickle. You may or may not have seen it. And it's a curved blade for kind of slashing grass and stuff like that. So that's originally why it was called sickle cell. But the problem is it can't, well, twofold. One, it hasn't got the surface area to carry the oxygen. So that's a problem. And two, they get stuck in the capillaries. Sometimes they all get blocked in the capillaries because of their shape. So if you have sickle cell, you can have it mildly, or you can have it quite serious. It can cause pain. Obviously, the oxygen can't get round. If it's really bad, it can cause organ damage. All right, so just be aware of sickle cell, just in case they throw it in, because they like to do that, especially in Edexcel, they like to throw it in. So make sure you have some knowledge of that. And a couple of questions just to finish off. So this one is about blood vessels. Draw one line from each type of blood vessel to the structure of the blood vessel. So have a little go. Right, so I'm hoping you can all do this one. So artery would be the one with the very thick walls. Capillary, we're looking for 1 cell thick. So this one. And vein's got that big old lumen in the middle, that big old hole. Okay, so well done if you got those. Fantastic job. Right. So this is the last one we're going to do today. Explain how the structure of an artery is related to its function. So if you want to pause and have a little go on these questions, that's fine. Okay, so this is an explain. So we need to be thinking biology words. And we're telling the examiner information that we know, that he doesn't know, to get our marks. Explain how the structure of an artery is related to its function. So we know that arteries take blood away from the heart. Now that might seem very obvious, but they haven't said it in the question. So we state the obvious because quite often obvious get the smarts. Now to the body. So artery takes blood away from the heart to the body. So we need to say a bit about the structure now. So it has thick, elastic walls. As the blood is under high pressure. Okay, so let's go back to the question, just check we've answered it. Explain how the structure of an artery is related to its function. So we've said its function, it's taking blood away from the heart, and then we've said something about the structure to justify that. We've said it's got thick elastic walls as blood is under high pressure. If we try to push the blood at the same pressure through a vein, it would split. Okay, so it's really important. It's got these elastic walls. The image below shows blood viewed through a microscope. Name A and B. Okay, so we said that white blood cells were always the largest ones, and red blood cells are a biconcave disc. So A here is a white blood cell, and B is a red blood cell. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a go at those, and make sure you know the names of the heart, what goes where. Don't forget the carbon dioxide when we're talking about oxygen going to and from. We need to talk about carbon dioxide well, especially in the higher papers, as that's often marks. Right, well done everyone. I will see you on the next one.